I, Matthew Harvey, author of the Bernicia Chronicles and other things like A Time for Swords and The Wolf of Wessex, and most recently A Night of Flames. So this is my weekly live chat, and yeah, it's been a busy week. I've recovered from COVID finally. Got a little bit of a cough, but nothing like it was. So yeah, I can't complain. And I'm feeling not 100%, but I'd say 90-something%. I think I took the day off today, and I went for a walk, quite a long walk, into Bath. Not all the way from where I live to Bath, but my wife dropped me off at her work. She works, and I walked into Bath, and I walked from the station afterwards, and I think maybe overdid it. You sort of, at the end of the walk, started feeling a little bit like, oh, okay. And you know what? I mean, if anyone's had COVID, they all, lots of people I know have had COVID, including my parents. Actually, recently told me, they really feel tired afterwards, and I think your body takes a long time to recover. So I'm feeling, day to day okay, and but yeah, I still need to take it a bit easy, I think. So the good news is that finished everything that I can do up to this point on Forest of Foes, and I submitted that to my editor or my editors. I've got a couple of editors really, and also to a few choice test readers that read all of my books in advance. I sent it to them, and early days, previous books, I used to finish the draft and polish it up, and then send it out, and then I would take time to write the historical note and other bits and pieces, and then send that later. But the last couple of books, I decided that it's better just to get everything done up front and send it so that people have got the full package. So I actually spent the time, early this week, writing the historical note at the end, which is where I explain, everything that I've made up and everything, where it's come from, and a little bit of the background history of what's going on in the book, which hopefully adds a bit of extra depth to a story, and I think helps people understand what's happening in the bigger picture outside of Bearbrand's story, and the decisions I've taken, and what I've left out and what I've put in, and what's real and what's not real and all that. So I've done all of that. So it felt great to get that done. I was a few days behind because of COVID last week, but actually still way ahead of the schedule of my deadline. So my deadline was end of May to get it done. So I'm a couple of months ahead, which is why I feel relaxed, and I can take today off and just feel I'm going to take a few easy days, although I'm not one to take a lot of time off. I start getting bored quite quickly. But anyway, I did all that, and that was great. I also had I've got a talking gig in a couple of weeks for the Hampshire Writers Society, which is something that was booked. So it's in Winchester, and it was booked, I don't know, like 3 years ago or something ridiculous. I was supposed to be doing it basically in April 2020, I think it was, when I was supposed to be doing it, but it was booked the year before that. So it's been on the sort of to-do list for years. I'd almost forgotten about it, but it's the time has finally come around, and as part of that, so I've got to prepare the talk for that. So I'll be doing that. Did a little bit of that yesterday. I'll be doing some more of that next week. But as part of that gig, I've got to also review and judge their writing competition. They do a monthly writing competition, and the speaker of their event judges that. So that was interesting. So I had a few short stories or snippets of writing to review, to read and judge, and that was really interesting. It's the first time I've done that, really. I used to teach English as a foreign language years ago, and so I suppose that's the closest I've come to that, when people would give me their things they'd written, and I'd sort of review them, say what I give them pointers and say what I thought. I also used to help proofread people's articles and stuff. So I guess that's the closest I've come to that in editing when I was working as a tech writer. But as a creative writer, to actually judge people's work was really interesting. And the thing I found most interesting about it was the fact that it was so subjective, that the standard actually overall was really, really good. And that made it more difficult for me because obviously, if everyone writes well, then how do you judge? How do you say how do you say what's the winner? And so it comes down much more to me as the reader, I think, and what sort of I liked rather than specifically the standard of writing. But I think the things that I did choose in the end, all the things that I chose had a couple of things in common, which were nothing to do with of what they're writing about or the genre or anything like that, but they all had a very assured, confident voice. So they all sounded like they really believed in the world they were writing, and therefore, as a reader, I really believed in the world they were writing. And I think that was the main thing. And all of them they all had that thing that I wanted to read more. So at the end of the shorts, they're only 300 words, so they're short pieces. And to get someone interested in 300 words and want them to read more, I think is quite a skill. So all of them that I picked, I had to pick a couple and the winner, so a couple of runners up and the winner, and all of them had that going for them. So something, if anyone's watching this and you're a writer, or you want to be a writer and you're writing something, that's something to think about. Sort of feel confident in the world that you're writing about and your own vision of it, and just really commit to it. And if you commit to it, the readers will believe in you and understand that they're in safe hands, I guess. So that's been my sort of working week, and then today, as I said, I took the day off, and I went to Bath, which is near where I live, and a beautiful city. But I didn't do sightseeing. I went to the lovely Tivoli cinema there, and I saw the new movie, The Batman. So that's a Matt Reeves movie. I've got a webpage up here, so I can just tell you a bit about it if you don't know anything about it. So it's directed by Matt Reeves, and I don't think, looking at his filmography, I don't think I've watched any of his movies. I might have watched some of the Planet of the Apes movies that he's done, but I'm not sure. But it stars Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne, Batman. Zoe Kravitz is in it as Catwoman. Paul Dano, Jeffrey Wright, John Turturro, Peter Sarsgaard, Andy Serkis, and Colin Farrell, and many other actors, of course, as well. I think originally in development it was going to be Ben Affleck was going to be the Batman in it, but he dropped out. I think he was going to direct it as well as at one stage. And I think Ben Affleck's a great Batman. He looks the part, and I'm a huge fan of the sort of grittier side of Batman, but in the comics, I would say a huge fan. I'm a fan. I'm not a massive fan. I haven't read every single Batman comic that's ever been written, but I loved the Dark Knight Returns Frank Miller story, and the Year One, and that sort of the Frank Miller darker sort of side of Batman. And I really enjoyed the movie. So I didn't really know what to expect. I have liked some of the Batman movies, but they've been a bit of a mixed bag. But I really liked it, and I believe that it's closer to what I think Batman should be. So I see it described online and in all reviews and stuff. People describe this movie, The Batman, as a superhero movie, and Batman is often described as a superhero movie or superhero movies. And it's not really accurate, because Batman isn't a superhero. He's a vigilante, but he's not super. He's got no powers. He's got no special powers. He's just a guy that spends his time and his money trying to fight crime. And I think it's interesting that I think he was the first. I don't really know the history behind it, but I think he was definitely one of the first DC Comics superheroes, or hero characters. Of course, you've got Superman is the other one, who is a real superhero with all of the superpowers. I think Batman might have been before Superman, but I'm not sure about that. But I think DC originally stood for Detective Comics, and this film really delves into much more of the detective noir sort of style, and it has voiceover from Batman, writing in his diary his observations of what's going on. It felt to me one of my favorite movies is Blade Runner. For anyone who's heard me talk about movies before, you'll know that. You might even have read certain little nods to Blade Runner in some of my books, but I won't tell you where. You can go off and look for them. But yeah, so it's one of my favorite films, and of course, Blade Runner, the original theatrical cut, has this voiceover that was much maligned, with Harrison Ford as the detective. And it's this much maligned voiceover that people didn't like. They'd added it to make it easier to understand or something. Harrison Ford hated it. Ridley Scott, who directed it, hated it. But I actually liked it, and it was the first version of the film I saw. I saw it many times before they brought out the director's cut and other cuts. And this film has a really similar aesthetic to Blade Runner. It's got all the neon lights. It's always in the rain and in the dark most of the time. The city streets are all grimy and full of splashback from the water and puddles, and people going around with transparent umbrellas and the light reflecting through windows and stuff. Very, very Blade Runner look and feel to it. And then you've got this voiceover. And another DC Comics property is Watchmen, and the original comic of Watchmen, and the movie tries to capture that, but it's Zack Snyder, and he's terrible at creating any sort of grit. So he unfortunately, I mean, The Watchmen is one of my favorite graphic novels, but I think it was really a missed opportunity when it was made into a movie. But it's got the character of Rorschach in The Watchmen, has this voiceover and talking about the city being, full of crime and all dirty and horrible, and it's all ready for a reckoning or something. And he's kind of mad and sort of talking about stuff. But this had lots of overtones of that sort of Rorschach voiceover, or sort of the comments from the diary as well. Felt very much like The Watchmen. I'd be very surprised if the writers, who else I think was Matt Reeves and a guy called Peter Craig. I don't know. Let me have a quick look at Peter Craig. What's he done? I'd be surprised if there weren't fans of Watchmen as well as Blade Runner. Okay, so Peter Craig has written some interesting stuff. He wrote some of the Hunger Games. He wrote The Town, which was the Ben Affleck thing. And he's also, more recently, he's written Top Gun Maverick. So that's going to be, that's coming out soon as well. So that's the sequel to Top Gun. So he's obviously got some big gigs out there. But yeah, so the Batman, it feels very much like that sort of, it's a film noir, but with the Batman as a detective. So it's really harkening back to what really essentially is the beginnings of Batman. It's that dark and grimy crime, gangster crime going on in the city that needs to be cleaned up. And again, it's quite. I mean, it's a little bit relentlessly dark, and dark in both the fact that it's filmed mainly at night, or lots of it at night, but also the fact that the subject matter is quite dark, and it sort of revels in its own darkness. But it does a great job, and it looks brilliant, and I really bought into the whole thing of going through Bruce Wayne / the Batman, going around looking for clues and actually going around interviewing witnesses and trying to find out what's going on, and being sometimes a few steps ahead and a few steps behind the Riddler, who is the baddie that's sort of kind of stringing it along. Most of the time, a few steps behind the baddie, who seems to be calling all the shots throughout the movie. But yeah, I really bought into it. Really did, I think it did a really good job. It's a little bit long. Film's nearly 3 hours long, which is a long movie, but I enjoyed it. I think it probably could have had maybe 10-20 minutes cut. Could have been 2.5 hours and still would have probably worked. But yeah, I think it's been a commercial success so far. Biggest, apparently, I'm reading here, it's the highest grossing film of 2022 so far. So they've certainly recouped their money. And it's a big budget movie, and you can see the money on the screen. Performances are fantastic. Robert Pattinson, I mean, he's been in loads of things. So he's been in Twilight. He was in some of the Harry Potter movies as well, and he's probably done loads of other things I'm not aware of. But he's one of those actors that I think people like to hate because he did the Twilight stuff, but actually he's sound in this. I mean, he's quite emo, gothy sort of Batman. He goes around looking grumpy and all the time. All the Batmen have this voice as well. I don't know why all Batman characters have to speak like that now. For the last, well, maybe forever. I don't know. Not the original Batman TV series didn't speak like that, but they all seem to now. They all seem to have a bit of a problem with laryngitis. But yeah, he's no different to all the other Batman characters. But yeah, all the performances are great. So Zoe Kravitz, I'm not sure I've seen. I can't remember if I've seen her in anything, but she's stunning and brilliant actress in it. She comes across as very believable as Catwoman, who has to be that sort of sexy but can look after herself kind of character, and she really is. And she's running around and holds her own with Batman. Paul Dano as the Riddler is really good, very very capable sort of baddie. It's a really good baddie actually, and especially you don't really see his face. He's always covered his face until the very end, and he manages to be this threatening, menacing character. So it's very good. John Turturro's brilliant. Jeffrey Wright as as Lieutenant Gordon, who I'm guessing later on will become Commissioner Gordon. He's brilliant, and Andy Serkis as Alfred, of course, the servant for. Or not servant, but the sort of right hand man, butler for Batman. He's great, and Colin Farrell actually is brilliant in it. I haven't liked Colin Farrell in films over the years, and he often as the hero is sort of the good looking heroic character, and I've often found him not that compelling, but as a villain. He's just fantastic, and so in this, he's actually the Penguin. So he's this sort of overweight gangster character who's been nicknamed the Penguin, and he's brilliant. He really does. He sort of goes to town doing his sort of gangster mafioso. Something like I've just watched the Godfather movies, and it felt like he could have stepped out of one of the Godfather movies. He does a brilliant turn, and I saw him recently in the TV series The North Water, and he's the villain in that, and he's chillingly scary, really, and compelling to watch. So Colin Farrell seems to have become this perfect baddie now. So I'm looking forward to seeing more movies with him as the villain, and yeah, he does a great job. So in short. Really great movie. Looks brilliant, tiny bit long, but I love the atmosphere, and really well made. I found it compelling, pretty sound, satisfying ending as well, which often is a problem for me. And I found it much more interesting than all of the Marvel universe stuff, because Marvel has gone. They are all superheroes, so in Marvel, everything has become huge and larger than life, and absolutely, in my opinion, it ups the stakes to such a point that you just don't care anymore. So when it's like, oh, we're going to destroy the universe and then we're going to blow up the planet and everything, it's like it gets to a point that you just think, I just don't care anymore. You could almost fall asleep in a Marvel movie, wake up in another Marvel movie, and it doesn't matter. It's the same action scenes. It's all CGI. Everything looks fake. And that's, for me, that's the problem a little bit with some of the Zack Snyder DC universe things that he's made. They look so cartoony and fake that it just annoys me. Whereas this has gone the other way, and it looks very, very real. It's very believable. The storyline feels gritty and real, and you can imagine the world that it's in being a real world. Very much like the new movie with Joaquin Phoenix, the Joker, which is kind of a standalone in a separate universe, but sort of talking about how the Joker came to be. And that, again, it feels very believable, feels very grounded and gritty. I think this is playing into that same sort of worldview of let's make this a believable, real world, not a sort of Marvel superhero trying to be like the Marvel movies. Let's be something different. and this really does the job for me. It was great, so I'm really pleased. I didn't go in with huge expectations, but actually was very pleasantly surprised and very pleased with it. So thoroughly recommended by me. Got one comment in here from Marie. Says, willing volunteer if you need more beta readers. Just finished Night of Flames and loved it. So, well, thanks very much. I don't need more beta readers at the moment. So thanks for the offer, though. And I'm very glad that you liked Night of Flames. And thank you to everybody that has read Night of Flames so far. And if you have and you've left a review, thank you very, very much. The reviews on Amazon and Goodreads really make a difference. There's been a couple of less than favorable reviews now, which is always which is part of the fun of being a writer, I guess. But so if you have read it and you haven't left a review and you've enjoyed the book, then please get online and leave your leave a nice review, and which can sort of cancel out the slightly less than favourable ones, which people are quite keen to to say they don't like something. I tell you what, this is my pet peeve, is the so often, and I wonder how many other writers will will say that they've seen the same thing, but so often you see a review which says, I've loved every book of this author, but this book was terrible, 1 star, I hated it, there's not a patch on the rest of it. And then you look at the reviews that the person has left, and they've never left you a positive review for any single book. They've only gone out of their way to leave this one negative review. And you think, well, if you loved all the others, why didn't you leave me positive reviews for all of those? Which always annoys me. By the way, if you're wondering what I'm doing down here, it's my dog is poking around. I'm stroking him to keep him quiet, but he's not seen me most of the day now. He's all cuddly. But anyway, I think he wants to go out. He's definitely poking me here down with his. He's very demanding. He's half border collie, and he pokes me with his nose like he's trying to herd a sheep, but he's scratching me now. Yes, okay, I get it. Very cute, though, I have to say. So anyway, I think that's it from me. So thanks again for everyone who's left a review. Enjoy your weekend and enjoy whatever you're doing. Stay safe, happy reading, and I'll see you next week. Bye.